3 men in dark police gear just smashed through my apartment door. Thing is, I've carried a real badge for 15 years. And these guys weren't law enforcement. My building's manager must think she finally figured out how to force me out. She has no clue what she's unleashed. If you've ever had insane apartment drama, imagine it turning lethal. Let me rewind. My name's Detective Adrian Cole, 36 years old. I moved into Ridgeview Towers 8 months ago after my marriage collapsed. Needed something cheap, quiet, and temporary while I got my head straight. The place seemed harmless enough: fresh paint, working elevators, nothing fancy, but it looked secure. First day I moved in, the property manager appeared. Linda Marks, late 40s, moved with that sharp-heeled confidence of someone who believes she owns the building instead of just running it. "Welcome to Ridgeview Towers," she said with a smile that felt rehearsed. "Just need to review a few of our community guidelines." Fine by me, every complex has rules. But then she started rattling off regulations that sounded more like a correctional handbook. No visitors past PM without prior approval. No sound above conversation level. No professional equipment stored inside units. That last part made my brow twitch. I keep my service weapon and case files locked in a secure box. That's standard protocol. "Ma'am," I said evenly, "I'm in law enforcement. I'm required to store certain gear safely." Her expression changed like a curtain dropping mid-show. "Well, Detective Cole, that's going to require additional authorization," she replied. "I'll need to review your lease in detail." The way her eyes lingered on me made my stomach tighten. It wasn't curiosity, it was calculation. 2 weeks later, a paper slid under my door. Violation notice: noise disturbance. 1:15 a.m. last Thursday. I stared at it, completely baffled. That Thursday at 1:15 a.m., I wasn't even home. I was knee-deep in a homicide scene downtown. Blood on asphalt and paperwork waiting back at the precinct. Didn't clock out until nearly 6. I've got the department logs to back it up. When I finally came home, the violation notice felt like a bad joke. So I knocked on my neighbor's door. Mr. Alvarez, gray-haired, construction worker, usually awake before sunrise. "Hey, did you hear any noise from my place Thursday night around 1? I asked. He blinked. "Detective, you're the quietest tenant on this floor. Never hear a peep out of you." That's when the switch flipped. 15 years on the job tunes your instincts to patterns. And something smelled off. I talked to 3 other tenants down the hall, same answer every time. Nobody heard a thing. Nobody filed a complaint. Yet somehow, Linda Marks had official statements from multiple residents accusing me of disturbing the peace. Week 3, another notice slides under my door. This time, an authorized vehicle in resident parking. Funny thing, my brother visited Sunday afternoon. He parked in visitor parking with the valid guest pass I got from the front desk. I kept the pass, the timestamp, even his gas receipt showing he left by PM. Still, Linda's notice claimed his car remained on the property for 3 consecutive days. Either every tenant in this place is lying, or the manager is fabricating reports. And as someone who's investigated plenty of scams, I knew exactly which one made sense. But what really caught my attention wasn't the fake violations. It was the money trail. I started digging into how Ridgeview Towers was being run. Maintenance jobs charged at premium rates, but never completed. Security deposits mysteriously missing. Rent hikes that broke city code. A quick property search told me something bigger. Linda Marks didn't just manage Ridgeview, she owned it, along with 2 other complexes on the east side, all bought outright in the last 3 years. Where does a mid-tier apartment manager get that kind of capital? So I started asking questions, quietly. Tenants shared stories about paying for repairs that never happened, or losing deposits without explanation. Most of them too afraid to complain they couldn't risk eviction. Linda wasn't managing a building. She was running a racket, and now I was part of her paper trail. As an officer, I couldn't pretend I didn't see it. So I did what I've always done, built a case. Photos of neglected units, copies of bogus citations, recorded chats with residents who'd been caught. Every file, every image, every timestamp, evidence stacking up like bricks in a wall. That was my first mistake. By the 4th week, Linda calls the precinct. "Detective Cole, we need to talk about your lease situation. Can you come by my office tonight around 7:30? The tone in her voice flicked every alarm. I've built over 15 years in law enforcement to calm. Too precise, like she'd already chosen the ending to the story. Still, I dealt with bigger threats than a crooked property manager. I told her I'd be there. Her office sat in the basement, bare concrete walls, one narrow exit, and a dead zone for cell signal. Not exactly neutral ground, but I'd walked into worse setups. Linda waited behind a metal desk, a thick folder resting at her fingertips. "Adrian," she said, dropping the fake smile, "we have a serious problem." She slid the folder across. "Several tenants have filed harassment complaints against you." Harassment. That stopped me cold. I'd barely spoken to anyone outside of routine questions about the fake citations. But according to her reports, I'd been interrogating residents about management, demanding access to lease documents, even threatening people with police action. I flipped through the stack, scanning the pages. The handwriting identical, the ink same pen, same stroke. It didn't take a forensic team to see she'd forged them all herself. "Miss Marks," I said quietly, "these statements are falsified, and you know it." Her face stiffened. I saw her hand drift toward the desk drawer. That instinctive tension, that half second before a bad choice, every veteran cop recognizes it. "Detective Cole," she said evenly, "you have 24 hours to vacate the premises. If you resist, I'll be forced to file criminal charges for stalking and intimidation." Charges based on her own fabrications. A bold play from someone sitting on a pyramid of fraud. Then she said the one thing that locked in her fate. "You know your problem, Adrian? Cops always think they're smarter than everyone else. Always digging where they shouldn't. Always trying to expose things that aren't their concern." The way she said it, cold, deliberate, told me everything. This wasn't about noise or parking. This was about silencing the one person who saw her scam for what it was. I left that concrete office knowing Linda Marks wasn't done. She'd push harder, maybe even cross the line into something reckless. What she didn't realize was that threatening a detective had just become the single worst decision of her career. 3 nights later, I came home from a late shift and found my front door splintered open. 3 men in police gear stood in my living room like they owned the place. The thing about fake cops, they never get the details right. Wrong shoulder patches, badges from agencies that don't exist, and that stiff posture of people who've only seen procedure on TV. Real officers don't conduct searches without warrants or witnesses. "Sir, step back," one of them ordered. "We're executing a search warrant for evidence of harassment and stalking." I was still wearing my actual uniform from a late shift. Real badge, real sidearm, real radio. These clowns wanted to play dress up in front of someone who knew the script by heart. "Then show me the warrant," I said, "and your credentials. And maybe explain why you're conducting an unsupervised search in another officer's apartment." The lead man hesitated, then reached for something under his belt. That was his last mistake. 15 years of fieldwork took over before thought could catch up. In less than 5 seconds, his weapon hit the floor. His arm locked behind him, and his partners were pinned against the wall. By the time I'd called dispatch, all 3 were face down on my carpet, wrists bound with flex cuffs. My partner, Detective Ramos, arrived with real backup minutes later. He surveyed the scene, smirking. "Adrian, please tell me you didn't just rough up more fake cops." "Afraid so," I said, breathing steady. Didn't take long for the truth to spill out. The 3 imposters cracked before they even reached the cruiser. Linda Marks had paid each of them $800 to break in and seize the evidence I'd gathered against her. She thought she could erase the trail. Instead, she handed me the last piece of the case I needed: breaking and entering, impersonating law enforcement, conspiracy, assault. The charges stacked up like dominoes, and the feds were eager to watch them fall. Within 48 hours, Linda was in custody. Within a week, all her properties were under federal audit. Within a month, she was facing indictments for fraud, tax evasion, and racketeering. Tenants got their stolen deposits back. The complexes were turned over to legitimate management. And me? I finally got the quiet, ordinary apartment I'd been trying to build since the divorce. Being a detective isn't just about chasing killers. Sometimes it's about standing up for people who can't fight back against predators in business clothes. Linda Marks learned that running a scam always comes full circle. The fake officers learned that impersonating cops in front of a real one is an express ticket to prison. And I learned that even when you try to start over, the badge never really leaves you. If this story hit home, stick around because crazy apartment drama I've seen worse, but this one takes the prize.